And we're live.
What up?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad to see you. I know you survived a traumatic event earlier today. So really, it probably could have been pretty scary.
Oh, yeah. So after finishing 5 hours of radio, I'm sitting there doing my morning show this morning, and I'm sitting in the parking lot of Billing Sims getting ready for our show. And this guy just walks directly up to the driver's side door of the window and puts his face up in there and just stares at me, covered. Like I thought I was going to get robbed.
Well, listen,
Yeah.
You're at a barbecue restaurant at 9 o'clock when clearly they're not serving barbecue.
Right.
You may have thought you'd been there for something else, and he might have been servicing that territory.
Right, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I give off pusher vibes.
yeah. Well, maybe you're the client, you know? I mean, he's just looking
Maybe
to see if
you're
you were. Yeah, I think he was willing to, I guess it's been a while since I've been involved in a drug deal. I'm just saying is that maybe you have to give some kind of signal that you're there to purchase. I don't know. I have no idea. No signal given, so he just moved on.
He did.
He moved on.
Yeah, thankful for that, for sure.
Let's talk some football, man, and let's talk about tomorrow, which is going to be really, really cool for us. We're going to be at Remington Park tomorrow night, and the whole key to this Game Day Live deal is participation. It's participation from everybody that's watching the game with us. I mean, not everybody's going to be at the stadium. It might be tough to pull us up second screen if you're inside the stadium. But if you're not, you're watching the game, and you want to hear from a player that played in the Big 12 and Division I football like Sam. He can tell you a lot of things that are going on in the game that you might not see or you might not get perspective of on television, or it's basically your chance to ask an analyst, a college football analyst, what's going on in this game right now. So, but this really doesn't work as well if we don't get the participation from you out there. So if you're watching us tonight, make sure, and we'll talk about more on the radio, and we want this podcast to grow over the next couple of years and build into a deal where we can hang out and watch games together.
Absolutely. This is going to be a good time. Take your small screen, pull us up. We'll be breaking down the game in the middle of it. I do this by myself anyway, and I thought I was going to miss being in the stadium.
You don't do it with your headset on, do you?
No.
Okay.
No. I do like sound my own voice, so I've become that guy. I'm not going to lie. No. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a ton of fun. You guys have questions. We interact with us on Twitter, on the Sports Animal Facebook and YouTube. And, this is going to be cool. Game Day Live.
It will be cool. I was even texting with Aggie Dave on the way up here in the car, talking about the same kind of theory that we dealt with on the radio earlier in the day, which was, hey, you guys are just building up Kansas State. So, if OU doesn't look so good, they lost at Tulane last week. They're really not that good of a team. I mean, I feel like I've just been talking about Kansas State all through the summer. Losing to Tulane wasn't something that I expected. Beating Missouri as bad as they did wasn't something that I expected either. They were not even a 10-point favorite in that game. I think they've got good players. Think that they've got, at least on offense, a guy that's a difference maker in Deuce Vaughn. He's good. So I think this is a challenge for OU. The 13-point spread, to me, is pretty reflective of where this game probably should be. I like OU, but I don't like them a ton.
Yeah, no, I would agree to that. I think the thing that we all have got to acknowledge here is Kansas State has won this game a handful of times in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
They've done it in Manhattan, and they've done it in Norman. And as a former player in this league, I respect Kansas State's identity as something that is timeless. Like, they just are what they are, whether it's Bill Snyder or Ron Prince or Coach Kleiman. It's the same narrative each and every year. They want to play in the phone booth. They want to be physical. They're good on both line of scrimmages. They block the hell out of you. They'll hit you. They always got a linebacker that's NFL caliber. They always have one member of the secondary that's an NFL caliber guy. There's always one offensive weapon that's an NFL caliber guy. They have all those things in that team right now. And you've got a head coach that welcomes the challenge. Listening to Coach Kleiman this week in his press conference, he admires Brent Venables. And I love these kind of intimate matchups like this. That dude's excited to coach against him for the first time. And when you hear him talking about the Oklahoma defense and what's happened in the last 3 weeks, he thinks it's Venables trying to figure out who they are, like what the identity of the defense is. I don't think that that's what it is as much as Venables is just going to show you a bunch of different stuff throughout the year. You're never going to be able to put your thumb on what the Oklahoma defense is unless you're have to guess what he's going to do against your offense, which is incredible, which is NFL stuff, right? That doesn't happen every single week in the college game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what growth and development we get out of both teams. I think that Kansas State will be super excited about this game. It's under the lights at night in Norman. That fan base will be rabid and excited about it. I think the Oklahoma Sooners are pretty fired up about the team that they have in front of them. Frankly, Mark, I'm impressed. I didn't think they would be as good as they are at this point in the season. You know, I wasn't willing to talk about semifinal game in Oklahoma. I'm probably a little more willing to today. I might be very willing to on Monday.
I think there's a spot open in the playoff for somebody. I'm not sure who it is. I don't know about OU being there yet. They're ahead of where I thought that they might be, but they're not necessarily in a category of semifinal good yet. But it's a different test than last week at Nebraska. Last week was an overall test, first game on the road. You go into a place that could be loud and lively, and it was for, I don't know, 20 minutes of actual time, and then OU scores 49 straight points, and the rest is history. They look really good. I think that the defense fared much better against the Nebraska offense than I expected them to do. Once I saw how poor the technique and the alignment was of the Nebraska defense, and just brutal, we're going to be a team that could tackle OU, then I expected kind of the result on offense. But I was surprised at the defense, which we've seen kind of fade away in games under Lincoln Riley in the past, lose enthusiasm, lose attention span, finish that game out with a lot of intensity. That says a lot for me.
Yeah,
and they've done that in every game this year.
100%. There have been moments where if that was a Lincoln Riley coach team, and I am not a Lincoln Riley hater as far as the football coach that he is, that dude is talented, no question. One of the best offensive minds we've seen in college football in the last 20 years, 30 years even. He is exceptional at what he does. But what I will tell you is Lincoln lost confidence early, and his team mimicked that. Nebraska goes up 7. If it was a Lincoln Riley coach team, there is a physical look on their faces of doubt almost immediately when the game gets started. They never handle adversity well at all when things started to flip the other direction. And I think that when you saw Venables go into the sidelines and grab that defense and have that passionate conversation with them, the way they came back on the field was with confidence and attitude. They hit you. I think that Grimes and Downs are as disruptive as you're going to get as defensive ends in this league for very young players still. They have no idea who they are as humans yet. Wait till they figure out how to get that attitude and play with a little bit of ferocity. I think those two are going to be untouchable this season. At some point this season, they will flip a switch and be even better than what we've seen so far. I think defensively, the Sooners are the real deal, which is why I'm more willing to imagine what a semifinal berth looks like, because you can't fake defense. Defense is not, you can fake offense all day. I'll tell you that. Gundy does it all the time. It is very difficult to fake defense, and I think those dudes are the real deal.
Yeah, it's been a weird series. Kansas State's won more than any other team in Norman in the conference since 2000. Been some weird games, man. I remember one year we were in Norman. That's when I'm working at OU, and I've got some information that not everybody in the stadium does, that there's been an explosion. You could see it inside the stadium, and that was a night that it was a terrible situation. Guy had a backpack full of explosives. Don't know if it meant to come into the stadium with it or he was going to commit suicide. He did commit suicide. It ended up killing him outside the stadium. It was probably would have been 2005, 4, 5, 6, something like that when I was working at OU. But anyway, because I was communicating internally with the broadcast that was going on, I was doing the sidelines at the time. Kind of knew, like, hey, there's been an explosion outside the stadium. We're still trying to figure out what it was.
Holy crap.
But that was a weird.
This is 4 years after 9/11. Like, your mindset is completely. It was. So I was still drunk and dumb. I was still in Stillwater doing dumb things.
But that was an odd time. But even again, you go back to the 2002 OU team. I think that was a year, or maybe it was the 01 team that Nate Hibble quarterback, that Oklahoma's coming off the national championship, and this defense is legit.
Right.
And it was continued to be legit. The offense struggled as the season went along, but that was a game that was 38-37. It was a big surprise at Kansas State, who was, I think, looking to be rebuilding at the time, weren't quite as good as they were in 2090, in the late 90s when they were that good, but came in and gave OU all they wanted. But the series has been good. Yeah, would have been a rivalry that I would have ever thought would have developed over the years, but it did. Yeah.
I mean, who was the kid? I mean, Kansas State had big-time players, Big 12 championship teams. They had who was the quarterback?
Michael Bishop, the best quarterback they had.
Yeah, Bishop was incredible, man. I remember being on the field watching Darren Sproles do what he did. I mean, they always had somebody.
That story is a little bit similar to OSU, is because I think the year was 98 when they had Michael Bishop. They're going to the Big 12 championship game. They're undefeated.
Oh, yeah.
They got A&M, who's Big 12 North, Big 12 South, a little bit the same year where, like Oklahoma State in 2011. Hey, look, we win a game. K-State's going to play for the national championship. Same as Oklahoma State in 2011, and they just didn't quite get it done in a late season game.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think
that's the only Big 12 championship A&M won.
That's crazy. What? Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I have a stat on A&M that they've lost 4 games or more in every year. If you don't count 2020 when they were really good, but they didn't play that many games, they've lost 4 or more games in every year but the Johnny Manziel year and the 98 year when they won the Big 12.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. I think I was thinking of L. Roberson.
L. Roberson was a recruit, I think a really highly recruited guy after Bishop.
Okay.
That they had, and they played in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State. Got worked over pretty good
because he couldn't play, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he get kicked out of that game for something? Yeah. Kansas State's been good for 20 years. I mean, bottom line, and there's a consistent level of play that we've gotten out of that team. I expect that same consistency this weekend against the Oklahoma Sooners. Very excited to see Kleiman Venables matchup. Excited to see the Roof Kleiman matchup, and then on the flip side of this, Kleiman very good about like the halftime adjustments conversation with this dude is. I'll never understand how good he is at it. Like he comes out with a plan in the second half, and he executes it extremely well. And I think this is where Lincoln floundered the most. He never could adjust. Like once the second half started and Kleiman threw out what he was going to do next, Riley struggled to adjust on both sides of the ball.
Why do you think that's the case? Because I think you have to say about Lincoln Riley, he's incredibly smart as an offensive mind. And that's the reason why he called plays at 24 in a bowl game at Tech.
Right.
He learned under Mike Leach. And I know he's probably has just grinded over offense football and what we can do against this defensive scheme. But it really doesn't seem like those adjustments are able to be made in a game like putting away Georgia with a lead of trying to run the football or trying to do different things. And when you find yourself in different situations.
I think that Georgia game, for example, I think he's just straight up panicked. Like we have to acknowledge that Lincoln Riley at that age, when he was 35 years old, coaching in the game of his life, I think he legitimately panicked in that game. I'll tell you this, that the Kansas State game in Manhattan, though, it wasn't Riley that failed to adjust as much. It was Grinch, and it just showed you how Crayola crayon that defense was. Like there's only one way to really do it. And if you get a coach that can, what Kleiman was doing is giving OU the image, right, of a play offensively. And then Kenneth Murray, who's just a cheetah at the linebacker spot, is going to where he thinks he needs to go and just taking himself. Like he let Oklahoma take themselves out of the game, and Grinch could never adjust to it. It was in that moment it was like, cool, this is a top 40 defense because they coach effort. And clearly Oklahoma needed that because at one point they were ranked 120th in football.
Right. Yeah.
Lord knows he improved it. But there was no meat and potatoes to the core of the defense. It was strictly based off of athleticism. It was run completely from the sidelines. And when you have a coach as veteran as Kleiman, he's going to take advantage of that, especially when you got 5 offensive linemen that are as talented as they usually do.
Well, I would assume this too, is that if you don't practice real defense, then it's hard to adjust in a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you're only used to going full speed and making contact and hitting and tackling guys a certain way in practice. If you need to make an adjustment in a game, it might be hard to do it.
It's the old hidden guard trick. I've never seen anything like it. Do you remember that? He'd pull the guard. He would pull either guard, and when the guard got to the other side to where the tackle was, that guard would turn around and go back. The ability to do that, one, on the guard, how athletic he is incredible. But the rest of the offensive linemen keeping the defensive line on the line of scrimmage to allow that space for that action is exceptional. Once they were able to do that, Kenneth Murray was a lost puppy. He had no idea what was going to happen. He just reads
guard because usually where the guard goes, the running back's going to go.
Running back's going to go. Yeah.
But that wasn't the case that day. Well, that's pretty brilliant game planning. What are the games you looking forward to tomorrow? Or Saturday.
Bro,
tomorrow.
I am fired up about Kansas and Duke. Right. Shout out to the Jayhawks. We're talking about a team that's done nothing but be miserable for years and years and years and years. That stadium is miserable. You got 20 kids, out there watching games, maybe a handful of parents and some other people in the stands. But the fact that they have sold that stadium out in a week and Kansas is undefeated and playing pretty damn good football on both sides of the ball, having the reigning Big 12 player of the week on that team. Offensively, they get it done on a high level. They feel confident in their quarterback and the job that he's doing. I mean, it really is one of the coolest stories that I feel like I've covered early in any college football season in the last decade. Like, how about Lance Leopold and the Jayhawks? Here they come.
Jalen Daniels, the quarterback. He's from California, and he had service academy offers and maybe a couple more. I'll tell you this. You know this. You've been up there. Football's not great, but college is good.
Oh, yeah.
Nice place.
Oh, yeah.
Fun, beautiful campus. I mean, you're going to get a good education. I think it would be – those guys, I assume, when they went to Kansas, got a big speech on how it's going to turn around and be better. And maybe Jalen Daniels didn't know that Lance Leopold was going to come in here and actually do it. But their offensive scheme is also pretty difficult to defend. They utilize a bunch of different players. We talked about that in the Houston game. I think he threw to 12 different receivers and they've got 2 Oklahoma kids that are in the backfield that are pretty. They've got Devin Neal's a good back. They got Sevion Morrison, who transferred in from Nebraska after last year, and then Deuce Highshaw that played at Moore. Morrison's from Edison in Tulsa. Those guys are all pretty good running backs.
Yeah.
They're tough to tackle.
And
they run hard.
That offensive line, you talked about a little earlier today on the show, they're great. Don't make mistakes, no penalties, haven't given up a sack all season long, which is so rare in college football today. Like, I'm blown away by, offensive line play back when Mark and I were in school was about perfection, right? You didn't give up, we didn't get penalties. I had 2 penalties in my entire 4-year career at Oklahoma State. Like, that wasn't like an option. And I bet you my teammates combined, we might have had, out of the 4 guys I came in with that started, I bet you we had less than 10 penalties over 4 years. And we only gave up 13 sacks my junior year. It was about perfection. This Kansas offensive line very much in that same category. They don't make mistakes. They trust each other. They move extremely well. They're going to be hard to handle. They really are.
Well, and you mentioned game plan sometimes. I mean, Kansas has been doing everything they want on offense, whether it be at West Virginia or Tennessee Tech or even at Houston last week. The completions of different receivers, the no sacks allowed. Mike Elko has been a good defensive coach. He was a coordinator at Notre Dame. He's a coordinator at Texas A&M. So he might be able to give them some challenges at Duke to slow that offense down a little bit. Now, you like Kansas to win this game?
I like Kansas. I like them to cover too.
Yeah.
I think it's line 6.5 at home, and that kind of atmosphere. There's some, I've never been a believer in this narrative that home field doesn't matter. Like Vegas, it says that home field is worth 3 points? Is that right?
3-4.
Yeah, man. Like I just feel like I've been in games where, I was in College Station one year before it got completely bowled in, and I remember having to hold the hand of the right tackle because it was so loud. Like, you would have asked me how much that noise is worth to them right now, I would have told you, well, they've completely changed the course of the game because now that defense is moving at the same time that I am. That's the whole advantage of the offense.
I think that's great analysis.
You know what I mean?
It's not the same in every environment,
right?
And it might not even be the same at A&M in a certain situation if you get out ahead and take the crowd out of the game,
right?
And it can be good for a great underdog home team to get out to a good start. It makes the crowd more invested.
I just think that Kansas Jayhawk fans know what it is to be insane because they're insane every college basketball game. So now you're just going to give that crazy group of people who's going into the fog every year a chance to double up the amount of people that are going to be there. They're going to be nuts on Saturday. The Kansas Jayhawks are undefeated in a nationally televised game against another undefeated team. This is insane. It didn't make any sense. It's amazing.
Well, they'll have they could potentially have that opportunity the next week when Iowa State comes to town on October the 1st, who could be also undefeated after beating Baylor, which would be a really big Big 12 game. So Kansas continues to kind of crank it up. You ever been to there's some great bars there. You ever been to the Wheel?
And Lawrence?
Yes.
Man, I didn't party in Lawrence as much. You had way more fun in Lawrence than I.
I'm way older than you.
I would have told you that was the worst Big 12 school to party at.
No, I don't think so at all. That place is fantastic. There is it's old. It's got a lot of old kind of college football, basketball art in there where people have painted different mascots and stuff. It's really cool to see. That place it's got a lot of good places to go.
Nice.
Sandbar is another place. It's about as big as it's about as big as the bar here at Brent's.
Okay.
And they've got a wheel that they spin, and whatever shows up on the wheel, they have dollar shots.
Oh, heck yeah. I like that.
Now, inflation may have taken its toll. I haven't been to the Sandbar in a while, but that place is good.
I'm more of a Bash Rip Rock, Dixie Chicken. Like you might.
Those are bigger venues.
You might get hit in the head with a full beer type of thing.
Those are bigger venues. All right. But I could lead you to a good time in Lawrence. That place is pretty cool. Texas Tech. What do you like?
Man, I like the Longhorns, and I rarely am I surprised by college football. Like we've done this for years and years and years, and we have a pretty idea what to expect. And I did not expect Sarkisian's team to come out as disciplined and focused as they have this season. I think that Alabama will shock your system and make you have to dial in like that. And I'm wondering what the residual effects are. Is this a Texas team now that takes the Big 12 arrogant and cocky and they get caught and love it because that's a hornet's nest? Or is this a Texas team that has finally gotten that confidence booster that allows them to take the field and be what they should be with the recruiting classes that they've had year in, year out? I think we'll find out a lot about this team in Texas Tech. That crowd's going to be crazy. Tech's invested a ton into that football program. Joey McGuire's automatically, like you can just tell by the way I saw some video of him talking to that team. Not everybody is all in. Texas Tech is all in. They like him. that team likes him, and I think that he'll have something in line for Texas. I think that Sark and the crew should win pretty handily here. If they are what they are, they'll win by 14 plus.
That game, you talk about it too. That is a sellout at Tech as well. I mean, they're fired up about their new coach, and I think the Big 12 is in a great kind of spot right now. If you're going to transition into a new league when Oklahoma and Texas do leave, because I think everybody for the most part feels pretty good about where they are.
Yeah, I agree.
They've got new coaches. Baylor had a new coach that just won the league. Kansas is turning it around a little bit. I think K-State is, they're kind of every year expecting to be about what they usually are. So the league is in a good spot. Now it's got to keep its good coaches. I mean, you lose Matt Campbell, you lose a Dave Aranda, and then things can go a little bit different. But I think in the game with Texas and Texas Tech, it's the skill position that's a difference. Bijan Robinson is the best player on the 22 when he's out there. I don't know what Texas is going to have at the quarterback situation, whether it's going to be Ewers or Card, but I think that the Texas skill is going to be too much of a mismatch for the Texas Tech defense, and that's going to be the difference in that one.
Yeah, I could see that for sure, and I think either quarterback very serviceable. I respect Card so much for the performance he had against Alabama, coming in off the bench, prepared, ready to play football. He delivered it accurately. He's got a nice arm also. The Ewers kid, to me, might be the most talented quarterback in the league. I think we have to watch him play a lot more football, but there's a real nastiness to the way that he's very stoic. His face doesn't change a whole lot. Like typically kids will look like kids in the huddle. They're super animated, a lot of hand motions, a lot of patting guys in the back, like trying to be a quarterback, right? Trying to get themselves going. Like I'm QB1, trying to convince themselves of it. That dude stepped on the field like he had been there and done it a lot.
Well, also his arm motion is like it's like watching a PGA golfer that's 5'11", 150 pounds hit the ball 350 yards.
Yeah, 100%.
Just comes out of there like a rocket, and he's not overthrowing it, not trying to throw it too hard. Throws a really catchable ball. He's just got great mechanics. So the hype on him is real.
Yeah.
Baylor and Iowa State, do you have an opinion on that?
Such an interesting game. It's there in Ames.
I like Iowa State.
Our guy, Gideon Hamilton, and I stood there in 2011 in that end zone and watched that ball go over the top of that upright as Oklahoma State failed to make a national championship. I'll tell you right now, that is as passionate a fan base you're going to find in college football. That atmosphere is incredible. It is loud. It is intense, and those people will be fired up to play against a one-loss Baylor team. I don't know. It's easy I don't know why it's so easy for me to respect Dave Campbell or Dave Aranda, because he's so weird. He's such a weird dude.
He's quiet,
but he knows his stuff, and he's like quiet assassin. Campbell, it's been years, and he's done nothing but establish that brand. They continue to recruit at a high level. They've only given up like 27 points or something this year defensively. They won that weird 3-3 stack that you wouldn't think would be worth a darn in this league, but they've always got a nose guard that's really good, a couple of defensive ends that are 6'5", 260. I'm like, where do you get these dudes, and how they get to Ames? I mean, that's a good football team. And at home, I mean, it's a pick 'em to me. I think that Baylor's probably the better football team from a personnel standpoint, probably more NFL guys in that team. But, I think it's Campbell's very capable of winning that game at home.
Well, here's what I love about Campbell is he's like, I think he's right out of the Mike Leach coaching philosophy is that he knows exactly what he needs at those positions to run the style of football that he wants to play. And he wasn't a 3-3-5 coach until he got to Iowa State and figured out, hey, I got to get all these people in the passing lanes to try to confuse these quarterbacks because I can't beat Kyler Murray, or our guys at Iowa State can't defend these type of guys. And I think he's figured out, okay, when I go watch a high school game, this is the guy that I want because I know what he does and I know how to fit him in my system. And I asked him about that one year at Big 12 Media Days. And he said one of the same thing that Mike Leach has told me before too. I watch for guys that compete. Like if I'm watching a film and I watch a guy and he plays for 20 plays, if he competed all 20 plays, then that tells me about something about him as a football player because he's getting ready to go into a lot tougher environment. If I see a guy and he's talented, but he just kind of quits and he loafs it, in high school games, you'll see this with elite players a lot of times, is that they'll take plays off. If their ball's not coming my way, and I think that they look for those type of guys that it takes to win in places like Washington State, Mississippi State, Iowa State. And like, look at Charlie Kolar. I mean, nobody wanted him. But hey, look, I want to run 3 tight end sets, which is really hard to defend because these guys can go block people's asses off and run the ball, or they can go in a bunch and run routes. And I got a 6'5", 245-pound athletic kid that's going to catch the football.
Right.
And so his schemes are really good, and there's nothing tricky about it. Bunch tight end sets hard to defend.
Right.
For anybody.
And he's working with what he's got. You know, Barry Switzer, famous for this. Like, this is my team this year. So these are the things that we're going to do. He always got the best out of the roster that he had in front of him. So Campbell's done a great job, and you wonder if he's going to be at Iowa State, you know, after this year. Nebraska's calling. I just don't. I mean, if you can recruit to Iowa State, which he's done successfully, he can recruit to Nebraska, you would assume. Same kind of pipeline, same connection, same area of the country.
Well, one thing that I'll say this about him is that you mentioned that the crowds at Iowa State are good. I think they love him. I think they take good care of him. And I think he's confident in himself enough to know, yeah, I can win games here. I mean, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good enough, I think, good enough to compete in this league as long as I do what I want to do. He's probably thinking of things the same way that Oklahoma State fans are. Hey, if Oklahoma and Texas are gone, you know, we lost Oklahoma in a Big 12 championship game.
That's a good point.
We've beaten them. Why not us come in and win in this league and get to a national championship game? And I think sometimes, man, when you make a move in a job, I made one really tough move, and it wasn't tough for different reasons, but there was an entirely different set of issues. Like, I leave Channel 9 to go to Channel 5. There's really good things about both places, but there are some issues at new places or old places that are hard to deal with, and they're not necessarily the same. If you go to a big program, expectations can be tough, knowing what boosters to deal with and all that stuff. So just stay and be confident and humble in what you can do. And if the right job comes along where you think you can take that and go compete, then I think maybe that's the case. But I like him a lot as a coach. You know, people kind of dogging him going into this year because they didn't achieve where they were expected to last year. Yeah. But look, they're right back this year and maybe better than they were last year.
Yeah, he's on the path to the statue outside the stadium, no question.
If you stay there long enough.
Yeah. I got one more.
Yeah.
USC?
Well, I like Oregon State. I think they're going to keep it close. I think it's all about defense. That's going to be a shootout. There's going to be points.
This is, you know, all I do is sit down and watch college football all morning long, typically, and I have not watched a whole lot of Oregon State. So I'm going to reevaluate them. I think that USC is very much in the same boat that Oklahoma was early in Lincoln Riley's career. It's like, oh, we have a new toy, and it's nice, and it's real nice. And I think the more that offense gains confidence, the better they're going to get. Even if the defense does give up 35 points a game, I think they're going to be able to outscore every opponent. The Addison kid, I have never seen. Like, I've covered guys like Des Bryant. Like, I know what first-round draft picks look like at the receiver. Oklahoma's had them. Oklahoma State's had multiple guys win Biletnikovs. Like, I get it. I know what that is. The Addison kid is the most unique receiver body and skill set that I think I've seen in a long time in the college game. It's like he plays like he's twice the size that he is, but he moves around like the kid from Tyler Lockett. Like, he's faster than that in straight line speed. Like, what a body that kid has. He's such a weapon.
Well, and USC is. It's just, isn't it strange about how much teams reflect their coach? I mean, USC's OU. They're just OU of the teams. So I think they'll win a lot of games. They don't have to face as stiff a competition as I think Lincoln Riley did at times, possibly in the Big 12. Maybe it's close to the same. I don't know. They'll score. They'll score in Oregon State. If they pass this road test, then I think USC's certainly proven themselves to be a team that can win. They got Utah coming up on the road, which will be a different type of game than they're used to seeing. But Caleb Williams he's good.
He's real good, man. He's real good.
Well, we'll be watching that tomorrow.
Yeah,
on at the same time.
Yeah, we'll be live from Remington Park.
Yeah,
right. This is going to be a ton of fun. We'll be watching the OU game. We will follow that up right with the USC game. Stick with us once again. Take your small screen and put us up on the small screen and listen to what we're talking about. If you have a question or you're thinking, can you believe that play? And I wonder what Mark and Sam are thinking. I promise you we're having the same you believe that play conversation here on Game Day Live. I want to say a big thank you to Brent's Cajun Seafood for having us out this afternoon.
Yeah.
A big fan of Brent and the food. If you haven't been here before, you need to get here and try it out. The food is exceptional. There's not a bad thing in the menu. And he's got this badass bar where TV's all over the place. If you're looking for a place to watch the game, coming in the Brent's, he's always here. He usually has a hat on. He doesn't have a hat on today, and it's very weird.
I want to know something. Every time I've come in here, the Cajun meatloaf has been sold out. I want to know, can Brent make more of the Cajun meatloaf so we can have it later in the day?
Or what? Brittany would fight over it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. I think it's gone. They said you got to get over there by about 1 o'clock or it's gone. So it's already gone.
So it's excellent. Not a bad thing here at Brent's. Come on in.
All right.
That's it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. See you tomorrow.